When it comes to selecting your next set of clubs or checking whether your current setup is the best for your individual game, it is likely that you would be better seeing what can be learned from the sets of the top LPGA Tour pros rather than their male pro colleagues. Swing speeds of the average male golfer match more closely to the LPGA Tour players than they do to the best players in the men's game. Around 93 miles an hour for the average male amateur golfer compared to an average of 94 miles an hour in the LPGA. And although there is little else in common between the average golfer and the top women pros from a skills perspective, there is plenty to learn from their club choices. A few videos ago, we took a detailed look at the most popular drivers and irons being used by the top 50 players on the LPGA Tour last year. And after a lot of requests from our audience, in this video we take another look at the data to discover the most popular clubs they use throughout the rest of the bag, the most common club setups, and what brands of clubs they most frequently choose. When it comes to looking at the most popular set of golf clubs used by the top 50 players in the LPGA Tour, there are clearly a lot of options for them to choose from. The best players on tour have access to pretty much any club they want, as the main club manufacturers' tour trucks follow them across the US to every tournament, with the latest models of clubs and shafts packed away in the back, ready and available for them to use as and when required. There are therefore plenty of makes and models of clubs being used by the top 50 LPGA Tour players. 29 different models of drivers and 38 models of irons, for example, last year. But our detailed analysis of this elite group found the following individual clubs to be the most popular in their category. At the top end of the bag, as we discovered in our earlier video, the most popular driver model we found chosen among this elite group was a 9-degree ping G425 LST. But when it came to fairway woods, a Titleist TSI2 3-wood at 15 degrees was the most used, while for 5-wood and 7-wood, it was Ping's 17.5 degree G400 and Titleist TSI2 at 21 degrees respectively, which found the most favour. Moving on to hybrids, Ping's G410 is the most popular, with their 19, 22 and 25 degree models being the most frequently chosen by those players using 3, 4 and 5 hybrid. For the minority of the top 50 using a utility iron, we found Callaway's Apex UT to be the most used. Taking irons next, Ping's I210 irons were the most common we found, from 5-iron to pitching wedge, with a fifth of the top 50 choosing them. Looking then at the shortest clubs in the bag last year, Titleist Vokey SM8 wedges were the clear favourite at the most commonly chosen lofts of 50, 54 and 58 degrees. But when it came to the putter choices made by the top 50, we discovered a huge variety of models being used with only 3 putters. The Scotty Cameron Select Squareback 2, the Odyssey O-Works No. 7 and Bettinardi Studio Stock 3 being used by more than one player. 2 things stand out from this list, however, which we need to look at in more detail in order to complete the summary picture of what clubs the best LPGA Tour players used last year. Firstly, the top 50 players clearly do not have 18 clubs in their golf bag, given the maximum allowed is 14. To complete the list we have just run through, however, we looked in detail at every club type being carried by one or more of the pros, but different players obviously choose to vary their club setups according to their own personal preferences. While some opt to play with more than one fairway wood, others prefer more hybrids to replace their long irons. A select few others, meanwhile, opt for utility stroke driving irons. Similarly, some players choose to carry more specialist wedges than others, so the selection of individual clubs clearly varies across the top 50 LPGA Tour players. But this is what our analysis found in terms of the most common club choices. The most common club setup used by the top 50 LPGA players is made up first of a driver, 3-wood and a 3 and 4 hybrid. The most popular iron set then starts with a 5-iron to pitching wedge with 3 specialist wedges, a 50-degree gap wedge, 54-degree sand wedge, and 58-degree lob wedge being added to a putter to complete the set. While this setup was found to be the most popular, it was also clear that other setups, particularly when it came to the longest clubs in the bag, found favour with a number of the top women pros. Some, for example, preferred a 3-wood and 5-wood combined with a 4 hybrid approach, while others preferred to use only 1 wood and a 3 hybrid prior to starting their iron set with a 4-iron rather than a 5. Aria Jutanagarn meanwhile opts to leave a driver out of her bag completely and chooses a 3-wood and 3 different utility stroke driving irons instead. So, as we can see, while there is a preferred club setup among the top 50 LPGA Tour players, there are other club choices that are preferred by a number of golfers, indicating how many options there are for players these days to experiment with the clubs they have in their bag. The second point which stands out from our list is that there are clear trend preferences that make the most popular club in a particular category less compelling a statement of preference to others. For example, we found only 7 out of the top 50 LPGA Tour players use utility stroke driving irons, so while Callaway's Apex UT was the most popular, it is only within a small data set of players who chose to use them. Similarly, while Graphite Design was the most popular hybrid shaft choice among the top 50, we discovered at least one player using a shaft made by all the other brands too: Ping, Fujikura, Aldila, Aerotech, KBS and Mitsubishi. When it came to putters, there were 44 different models being used among the top 50, so the most popular model we found was only the most used by a factor of 1 player from almost all the rest of the other putters being played with. Many players also choose to alter the loft of their clubs. Jennifer Kupcho, for example, has a 4 hybrid in her bag, but strengthens the loft to be comparable with other pros' 3 hybrid clubs. So it is clear we should not always draw immediate conclusions from the basic numbers in a pro's club, as they may not exactly match what they seem at first glance. What all this tells us simply is that all the top LPGA Tour players are constantly looking for an extra edge in their club setup and are always exploring the full range of makes and models the golf manufacturers are producing to find the precise best one for their own swing and specific requirements. From a club brand perspective, Ping is the dominant brand among the golf clubs used by the top 50 players in the LPGA Tour, with their clubs being either first or second across all the main club type categories. Titleist is the next most popular brand, with PXG golf clubs being the next most used. However, while Ping and Titleist's profile at the top of the club choices of the best players in the LPGA Tour is not so surprising, the popularity of PXG clubs on the LPGA Tour is perhaps a bit more unusual. Parsons Extremes Golf was only founded in September of 2014 by businessman, philanthropist and golf enthusiast Bob Parsons, and it is interesting to note their increasing presence among the clubs of the LPGA Tour players. This popularity is not matched in the men's side of the game at the moment, but it is fascinating to note a new name in the golf club manufacturer scene find success so quickly among the elite players in the women's game. The increase of specialist golf brands was also reflected in our analysis of the golf clubs chosen by the top 50 LPGA Tour players, and it is notable that certain brands find more favour in some categories than in others. Mizuno, for example, is clearly not a preferred choice when it comes to the long club choices of the best LPGA players, but the reputation of the quality of their irons is evident, with many more pros choosing to use them than any other of the club types they make. Similarly, TaylorMade drivers are much more popular than any of their other clubs and are the second most used among the top 50. So while Ping and Titleist clubs dominate, there are specific club types where many of the other manufacturers have particular specialisms, and this is also reflected in the club choices of LPGA Tour players. To complete the bag, we thought for the sake of completeness, we would also take a look at the golf balls being played by the top female players in the world. And while we had an expectation that Titleist golf balls would find favour with the majority of the best 50 players on the LPGA Tour, even we were surprised by the dominance of the Pro V1 and Pro V1X among this elite group. In total, we found 41 of the top 50 use a Pro V1 or Pro V1X, and that the split between which model they use is roughly even. While 18 play the Pro V1, 22 of the top 50 prefer the Pro V1X, with Lydia Ko being noted to use the Pro V1 left dash. Both Nelly Korda and Jessica Korda, meanwhile, use a Pro V1. Among the rest of the top 50, Srixon Z-Star is used by 5 players, while 2 players each use Callaway Chrome Soft X golf balls. The final 2 players also use Bridgestone's Tour BX, including Lexi Thompson, although it is interesting to note none of the top 50 choose to play with the Bridgestone's Tour BXS, the preferred golf ball of Tiger Woods. As we mentioned at the top of this video, we previously did a much deeper dive into all the drivers and irons, including the shaft specs the top 50 LPGA Tour players used last year. So if you're interested in seeing that breakdown, you can click on the link at the top of the screen. Also, if you found these analyses useful and would like to know whether anything has changed in the clubs the best women players in the world are planning to use next year for the coming season, please enter a comment of 2023 below, together with any other club info you would find useful to know, to let us gauge how much interest there is in us doing this. Thanks again for watching this last video of 2022 and for all your support this year for the Golfing Focus channel. We'll be back in the new year with the aim of publishing more regularly and consistently once a week on a Monday, so please subscribe and like this video to ensure you don't miss any of our new great content. And finally, and most importantly as always, enjoy your golf.